Welcome to our Savvy series. I'm Catherine Lagana here with Rachel Ivanovich, and here we are in 2025. So we thought we'd start off with the mindset of goal setting. And as you look at financial planning and investing, it's really important to have financial goals in mind. But before you even get there, there's some questions and things to think about as you kind of reflect and look at your goals for 2025. And you kind of need to also take a step back and reflect on what happened in 2024, and also, what things could you do better in 2025? And so as we kind of phase into the new year, there's financial goals, but also just, once again, getting your word for the year and getting really focused and intentional on what it is that you expect for the coming year.
And a lot of people, if you are like my husband, have a very hard time setting goals.
Yes.
And so for him, long-term planning is what's for lunch. And so what I have been working on with him is, okay, let's, instead of looking forward to set our goals, why don't we look to the past and look at what we actually enjoyed doing in the past and what were some of the best moments that we've had, and how do we recreate those, and then we can set goals around those things.
Well, it's interesting. We do a lot of workshops and sessions and different things that we host throughout the year. And coming up, we actually have our Savvy Woman Invest on Purpose workshop. And one of the things we do in there is really look at what's your purpose and kind of thinking about the future and money and seeing yourself 10 years from now. And so, once again, we do have a lot of resources and information. If you'd like to join us at our workshop, you can find it at our savvyup.com website, or also we are available for strategy sessions or phone calls, and you can reach us at 760-692-5700. So as we kind of are here thinking about the year and what's to come, there's 5 financial goals to think about in the new year. One is really getting organized and looking, like you said, kind of reflect back, but also look at your financials. Like, what did you spend money on last year? And it's interesting because I think a lot of times, well, you probably see it in taxes, a lot of times people go back and look at their spending patterns and everything around tax time, but they really should do it now and make sure, okay, what did we spend last year? And were there any big surprises or anything change? And really reflect now, okay, going forward, what's my lifestyle? What are my expenses going to be for this coming year? And so it's a good idea to kind of track your expenses and look where you're at. And then also building an emergency fund. So kind of looking at, how much money do you have set aside? Because, it's interesting, over the year, you may have accumulated more money and you're squirreling it away. But the reality is you may have some extra money set aside. And I think we tend to see that a lot with clients.
I think people ask often, how much should I set aside for an emergency fund? But if you don't know what your monthly expenses are, it's hard to give you a number. So I think printing out 3 months worth of bank statements or credit card statements is a really good place to start, to look at those numbers. And it's a fun exercise for us.
We love it. I know. Everyone else is like, I want to poke my eyeballs out.
Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting. Like, if you think about it in terms of the things that you want to do, and if I'm able to save a little bit of money, then I can go do the traveling that I want to do, or I can buy that fancy purse or the pair of shoes or whatever it is that you really want to do. That it makes the exercise of looking at your numbers more exciting.
Yeah. So we do get asked, how much should I have set aside? Usually it's 3 to 6 months for emergency funds, 3 months if you have a really consistent salary and income, 6 months if it fluctuates a little bit. And then once again, those are kind of the standard. But what happens is sometimes as you put that money away and you start building more reserves, you do need to get that money invested and put to work, because otherwise it's either earning interest or it's not. It doesn't have as much growth potential. So really looking at how much money should you have set aside and investing some of the money, if it makes sense. So then another thing to consider right now is, do you have any debts? I know we just ended the holidays, and I know a lot of clients we work with, they usually don't carry a lot of credit card debt, but usually you have the debt and you pay it off. But are there any other debts to look at and consider? Are there any mortgages or anything, home equity lines of credit, or kind of revisiting, make sure that your rates are in line? Or
I think it's a really good time of year to look at that and really make a plan for, if you do have debt, which card do I pay down first, or which debt do I pay down first? And we just had a conversation with a client during a meeting, saying, I want to pay off my mortgage, I want to pay off my house. But then when we looked at the balance and her interest rate, it doesn't make sense for her to do that.
Yeah, and the rate was pretty low. And so it's that, I think what she mentioned is that mindset of, like, you grew up thinking, I have to have my house paid off. I have to have my house paid off. But the reality is, financially, it may not make sense if your money can grow, make more money for you. But once again, that's kind of looking at the overall plan and how are you using your debts and liabilities. So another kind of financial goal to look at for this year is making sure your investment contributions, as now we're in the new year in 2025, if you're putting money in an IRA, a Roth IRA, or if you have your 401k and simple IRAs, one of the things for 2025, the 401k contribution limit went up $500. So that's something to consider, look at if you're putting money in a 401k. And then there's still the match. So, for example, for 401ks and 403bs and 457, which are retirement plans, the savings amount is now $23,500, and then the catch-up remains at $7,500. And then so that's for 2025. But then there's a
Wait
new
a minute.
rule.
I was going to say,
So
if
there's a
you're
new rule.
60, 61, or 62.
Yes, 60, 61, 62, 63, then the catch-up instead of $7,500 is $11,250. So it is important to see where do you lie in those ages and making sure that you're updating your salary deferrals to make those contributions.
And I get a lot of questions from clients if they do have debt, but they also want to save for retirement. It's like, which one should I do? Yeah. And I'm sure you get that a lot too.
We do. It's, you want to save for retirement, and you do want to, it's a combination. I mean, you want to pay, and if you're, also it's a function of how much, what are the rates? Yeah. So if you have a lot of high interest rate credit cards, and you're going to want to get those paid off pretty quick. But
the other question I get too is, should I save for my kids' college or should I save for retirement? Yeah. And so, what's your thought on that?
Well, I have twins that are going to be going to college soon.
I know. And that'd be a great question for you.
I know. So well, it's also a matter of how much do you want to cover for your kids for college.
They should have some skin in the game.
Exactly. So, for me personally, we're not going to, our goal isn't to pay for everything. It's to, pay for most or part of it and then have them be a part of it too. And so for us in our family, we've been putting money in retirement and putting money in education accounts, but we've been doing this since they were born. So this has been, it's not,
and.
Yeah. So it's an and then eventually when they go to college, when they're done, then that extra money will continue to come back to us. Although I'm sure there's going to be other expenses or things that never goes away. So, but yes, I think it's, but it is kind of what are your goals and priorities? And for us, it, is making sure that, a combination of the two. And then, another thing that comes up at the beginning of the year as you're kind of looking at your goals and plans is, is there something special that you want for this year? Is there a big trip? Is there a car? Is there a second home?
Nice pair of shoes.
Yeah, something. Is there something that's kind of on the horizon? Is it a short-term or long-term goal? And are you putting money away, or do you have the money allocated from your investments? And so just, once again, it's a good time to kind of think about financially, where am I at? Do I need to make any changes? And we're big financial and tax planning, and we believe in financial planning. And so it never hurts to revisit your plan, especially at the beginning of the year.
And it's really important to cast that vision for the year and have a plan, like you said. And as I said at the very beginning, some people have a hard time setting goals, setting a vision. And so, like I was saying, it might make sense for you to make a list of things that you enjoyed doing in the past. Because, okay, here's a question. So if I were to ask you, would it be easier for you to write down all of the things in the past 20 years that were fun for you, or were best moments? Would that be easier? Or would it be easier to write down what are going to be the best moments I'm going to have over the next 20 years?
I tend to be a little more futuristic personally.
I love that.
So
She lives in the fantasy world.
I do. I live in the future. I'm like, okay, what do I see? What do I go? I always think forward. And yes, it is important to reflect back. But that's really what motivates and guides me is, okay, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Yeah, I get excited.
I love that about you too.
Thank you.
A lot of people, they do have a hard time looking forward. And so by looking in the past and saying, what were those best things that I did? Experiences, people, objects, what made me happy, what brought me joy, then it will help you to project out into the future and do more of those things.
Yeah. Well, I like that. It's definitely a combination of thinking about the past and what makes you, like I said, happy, and then moving forward.
It helps you to set those goals for the future.
Nice. Well, we are available if you like a call or consultation with us. Once again, you can reach us at 760-692-5700. And thank you for joining us. And remember to savvy up.
Please stay tuned for important regulatory disclosures.
Savvy Women Wealth Management is an SEC registered investment advisor. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry and how we may be able to assist. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. As always, please remember investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Tax considerations presented may not be appropriate for every individual circumstance. A tax professional should be consulted before making any decisions about your tax liability.